I'm telling you, he does not live here. I've been in this building 12 years.
That is a registered deed. My name is on it.
It could have been printed anywhere. Dismiss that paper.
Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me and we'll sort this out at the station.
You looked at that deed. You looked right at it.
I'm telling you, he does not live here. I've been in this building 12 years. That is a registered deed. My name is on it. It could have been printed anywhere. Dismiss that paper. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me and we'll sort this out at the station. You looked at that deed. You looked right at it. Here's what happened. A woman saw a white American man carrying boxes in her building and decided he was stealing. She confronted him. He showed her his lease. She called it fake. She called 911. A deputy showed up and agreed with her. The only problem, and it is a significant one, is that the man carrying the boxes was Isaac Peters, who was starting Monday as Houston's new police chief. And the deputy's body cam recorded every second of what happened next. This is the story of what that footage showed, what investigators found when they started pulling records, and why Maddie Boston is no longer living in that building. Before we go any further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love knowing where our viewers are. And if you believe a man should never have to prove a deed is real to a woman who doesn't own the hallway, hit like and subscribe. Now let's get into it. Isaac Peters pulled into the parking structure at Crestview Commons at 9:15 on a Saturday morning with a half-full pickup bed and a weekend ahead of him. He was 46 years old. He had spent 24 years working through every rank the Houston Police Department offered. And 3 weeks ago, he had been appointed the city's new police chief, a position he would officially occupy starting Monday morning. Today was moving day. Then he had purchased apartment 7B 6 weeks earlier. The deed was registered in his name with Harris County. The lease carried a notary stamp dated a Thursday in October. He had arranged for a moving truck to deliver furniture at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Until then, he was doing the first trips himself, boxes of books, kitchen items, things he preferred to handle without help. He was dressed the way anyone dresses to move. Dark jeans, a gray long-sleeve shirt, clean work boots. He was relaxed because he had nothing to be tense about. He carried the first box through the lobby, took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked to apartment 7B, set the box inside, and went back down. He made a second trip, a third. On the 4th trip, he stepped off the elevator and found a woman standing in the middle of the corridor. She was in her early 50s, wearing weekend clothes, positioned in the center of the hallway with her arms crossed. Her name was Maddie Boston. She had lived in apartment 4A for 12 years. She watched Peters come off the elevator with the box. She told him to put it down. Peters stopped. He looked at her. He set the box on the floor carefully and told her he was moving into apartment 7B. He had been doing so since 9:15. Maddie Boston did not move. She said she had lived in this building for 12 years and knew every resident on this floor. Nobody had told her about a new neighbor. She said residents had been losing packages from the mailroom for weeks. She said she knew what she was looking at. Peters asked her to look at the lease he was carrying. She glanced at it and said it could have been printed off anywhere. She said the building management company had not informed her of any new tenant. Then she said the thing that closed every remaining door between them. She told him that people like him did not belong in a building like this. Peters had heard that sentence before, not a version of it. That sentence in that construction delivered in that tone. He had heard it 11 times across 24 years in law enforcement. He recognized it with the accuracy of a man who has been forced to learn the catalog. It told him exactly what kind of morning this was going to be. He did not raise his voice. He did not argue. He reached into his jacket, produced the deed, the Harris County registered deed with his name on it and the building management company's phone number printed along the bottom, and held it out to her. Maddie Boston looked at it and said it wouldn't matter. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Here is the detail that matters, though neither of them knew it yet. The call did not connect to Houston Police Department City Dispatch. It connected to the Harris County Sheriff's Office. This happened because of how Maddie's phone carrier routed emergency calls within that section of the building's coverage zone. It was a routing detail. Neither of them was thinking about it. It would become the most consequential thing that happened that morning. Maddie told the dispatcher there was a suspicious male in the building, a white American man carrying boxes who was claiming to be a new resident, but whose documents did not look right. The dispatcher asked if the man had done anything threatening. Maddie said no. She said she just knew he did not belong there. The call lasted 4 minutes and 9 seconds. It was recorded on the county sheriff's system. Peters picked up his box while she was still on the phone. He carried it into apartment 7B, set it down, and went back to the elevator for the next one. He had a truck arriving at 2. He would like to have the hallway clear. 8 minutes after the call ended, the elevator doors opened and Deputy Dale Carver stepped out. Carver was 38 years old and had been with the Harris County Sheriff's Office for 9 years. He moved into the hallway with the body language of a man who had already formed his conclusions on the way up. Maddie Boston pointed at Peters. Carver walked toward him. Peters set the box down for the second time that morning. He produced the deed. He produced the lease with the notary stamp. He offered Carver the building management phone number printed directly on the deed and told him he could verify the purchase in under 60 seconds. Carver looked at the documents. He looked at Maddie Boston. He handed the papers back to Peters and said they could be fraudulent. He said he would need Peters to come with him to the station to sort it out. Peters looked at him and said he was not going anywhere. 2 men stood in the hallway. One held a notarized deed to the apartment behind him. The other had decided before asking a single question whose account was worth believing. The deputy's body cam was still recording. Carver took a step forward. His right hand moved to his belt, not reaching for anything but positioning. 9 years of training had made the gesture automatic. It was the body language of a man preparing to be obeyed. Peters watched the hand. He watched Carver's eyes. And then, with the visible deliberateness of someone who has spent 24 years making sure his movements are never misread, he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He produced a leather badge wallet. He opened it and held it level, facing outward, so that Carver and the body cam lens could both read it without question. Houston Police Department, Chief of Police, Isaac Peters. The footage captured what happened in the 4 seconds that followed. Carver's expression did not shift gradually. It emptied. His weight moved back. A small involuntary step that he likely did not notice he was taking. His hand left his belt. Behind him, somewhere near the elevator, the sound of Maddie Boston's voice stopped mid-sentence. But Carver stood in the hallway holding nothing, looking at a badge that meant the man he had been about to detain was, as of the coming Monday morning, the commanding officer of the largest police department in the city of Houston. Peters closed the wallet and returned it to his pocket. His voice did not change register. He told Carver that before he left the floor, he would need 3 things: the complete body cam footage from the interaction, time-stamped and unedited, the call recording and full log from the 911 call that had brought Carver to the building, and a written incident report with Carver's badge number, his time of arrival, and a complete account of every instruction given and every document reviewed in that hallway. Carver nodded. It was the nod of a man who understands that the ground has already shifted, certain that no version of the next hour improves his situation. Peters turned to Maddie Boston. He told her she would be hearing from his attorney. Then he picked up his box from the hallway floor, carried it into apartment 7B, and closed the door behind him. He had 4 more trips before the moving truck arrived. Before we continue, if you have ever been told you do not belong somewhere you had every legal right to be, drop a comment. Tell us where it happened. And if you believe a man should not need a badge to prove a notarized deed is real, share this with someone who needs to understand why that matters. Monday morning, Peters arrived at Houston Police Department headquarters at 7:45 in full uniform. He greeted the desk officers. He shook hands with administrative staff who had been expecting him for 2 weeks. He walked into his office and sat behind the desk for the first time. At 8 o'clock, he opened the folder. It held the body cam footage, the 911 call recording, and Carver's incident report. Peters reviewed all 3 without interruption with the attention of a man who had spent 24 years reading evidence. When he finished, he closed the folder and asked his investigators to pull Dale Carver's personnel file from the Harris County Sheriff's Office. What they found changed the shape of the story. 9 years of service, 9 formal complaints. 7 of those 9 involved white American men whose valid documentation had been dismissed at the scene in favor of a white witness's account. All 9 complaints had been investigated internally by the sheriff's office. All 9 had been closed without disciplinary action. 3 of the closing notes described Carver as a diligent officer whose instincts had served the department well. His instincts. Peters read that phrase twice and set the file down. Then came the third element, the one that had been sitting in the architecture of the story since Mattie Boston dialed 911 and reached the county dispatcher instead of city dispatch. Because the call had routed to the Harris County Sheriff's Office, Carver's conduct fell outside Peters's direct authority. The Houston Police Department and the County Sheriff's Office operated under separate command structures with separate oversight processes. Peters could place his own officers on administrative leave. He did not have the unilateral authority to do the same to a county deputy. What he could do, and did within 24 hours of reviewing the file, was submit a formal interagency review request under a joint oversight protocol established between the city and the county. That request triggered the convening of a review board. Representatives from the Houston Police Department, the Harris County Sheriff's Office, and an independent civilian oversight panel. Mattie Boston had called the wrong dispatch line. In doing so, she had activated a review body that neither she nor Dale Carver knew existed, and that neither of them had any mechanism to stop. The board convened within 48 hours. Carver was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. Peters's attorney filed the civil complaint against Mattie Boston that same week. Racial discrimination, filing a racially motivated false report, harassment, and she was served the papers at Apartment 4A on a Wednesday afternoon. By the time she opened the envelope, the board had already submitted a records request to Crestview Commons Building Management. They wanted 12 years of security footage. What they were about to find had nothing to do with one Saturday morning. The archive covered 11 years. The building's security system had been recording continuously since its installation, and when investigators began reviewing the footage at the Interagency Board's request, they were looking for context. They found a pattern. Mattie Boston appeared in hallway and lobby footage on 87 separate occasions across 5 years. 41 of those appearances had no connection to her own movement through the building. She was not coming or going. She was positioned near the elevator or at an angle near the mailboxes or standing at the end of the 4th floor corridor facing the common areas rather than her own apartment door. In 14 of those appearances, investigators noted that she reached for her phone within seconds of a white American resident walking past her in the corridor. Building management was contacted and asked to produce their formal complaint records for the same 12-year period. Mattie Boston had filed 19 complaints. 16 were against white American residents. The complaints covered noise violations, allegations of suspicious behavior in common areas, and claims of property damage. None had been substantiated on investigation. All had been processed. 12 had resulted in formal letters to the named residents. The remaining 4 had been closed at the review stage. 3 white American residents had moved out of Crestview Commons within 6 months of complaint campaigns filed against them by Mattie Boston. Investigators contacted all 3. 2 agreed to speak. The first was a woman who had lived in apartment 4B directly next to Mattie's unit for 7 months. She described Mattie knocking on her door to report noise while she was watching television at standard volume. She described riding the elevator with Mattie in complete silence while Mattie looked at the wall. She described coming home one evening to find a handwritten note under her door accusing her of scuffing the hallway carpet outside her unit. When investigators pulled the building's maintenance records, they found that the scuff mark in question had been logged 3 years before the woman moved in. She had filed 2 complaints with building management. Both were resolved with a letter to Mattie Boston. She left after 7 months because, as she told investigators, staying meant defending her right to exist in the building every single week for something she had not done. The second former resident had lived in apartment 4D for 4 months. He did not file any complaints. He had watched what happened to the woman in 4B, 2 complaints, 2 letters, no change, and calculated that his time was better spent finding somewhere else to live than fighting a process that had already shown him its ceiling. Both of them heard what had happened to Isaac Peters on that Saturday morning, and both said the same thing in different words. And they were not surprised. The Interagency Review Board released its findings 6 weeks after the incident. The report was 43 pages long. Its conclusions were not complicated. Dale Carver was terminated. The board found that his dismissal of Peters's documentation was consistent with a pattern of racially motivated conduct across 9 years of service, and that the internal complaint process that had repeatedly cleared him had operated as a protection mechanism rather than an accountability one. His termination was effective immediately. His pension was placed under review pending a separate civil claim filed against him personally, a claim brought by a man he had wrongfully detained in 2021 who refiled his previously closed complaint the week the Crestview Commons body cam footage became public record. Carver appealed through the County Deputies Union. The union reviewed the body cam footage, the call log, the 9 complaints across 9 years, and the board's full report. The union declined to pursue the appeal. Maddie Boston's civil trial opened 8 weeks after Peters filed his complaint. Her attorney had spent those 8 weeks attempting to construct a defense that could survive the 911 recording, 5 years of hallway surveillance footage, the testimony of 2 former residents, and building management records documenting 16 complaints against white American residents over 12 years. No such defense existed. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. They found in Peters's favor on every count: racial discrimination, filing a racially motivated false police report, harassment, and ordered Maddie Boston to pay $200,000 in damages. Her employer, a Houston real estate firm where she had worked for 11 years, terminated her 2 days after the verdict. The building management company, facing the combined weight of the settled former tenant claims and 12 years of complaint mishandling now documented in the public record, reviewed Maddie Boston's lease and found that her sustained campaign against white American residents constituted a material violation of the building's conduct policy. They issued a termination notice. She had 90 days to vacate apartment 4A. She moved out on a Tuesday morning. The building security camera recorded her in the hallway carrying boxes to the elevator through the same corridor where she had told Isaac Peters he did not belong. She was in the parking lot before 11. She did not stop. There was nothing left to say to a building that had recorded everything. 4 days after the verdict, Peters stood at a podium inside Houston Police Department headquarters. He was in full uniform. He spoke for 4 minutes. He had no notes. He described the Saturday morning. He described the box he was carrying, books mostly. He described Maddie Boston stepping into the hallway and telling him that people like him did not belong in a building like the one he had purchased 6 weeks earlier. He described showing a deputy a notarized deed and watching that deputy hand it back. Then he said the line that ran in every headline the following morning. He had a badge on his hip and a lease in his hand. The deputy chose her voice anyway. That was not one bad deputy. That was a system that taught him her word was worth more than Peters's paper. He paused 3 seconds. He looked directly at the cameras. He said that what the system had taught, the system could unlearn, and that starting Monday morning, the unlearning would begin. The room did not move immediately after he finished. The reporters who had covered Houston for years wrote afterward that they could not remember a press conference where the silence after a statement carried more weight than the statement itself. In his first year as chief, 3 reforms passed through the Houston Police Department and were adopted in modified form by the Harris County Sheriff's Office under pressure from the Interagency Oversight Board. All documentation challenges at the scene required a logged, specific reason, not a general assertion of possible fraud. All racial profiling complaints went to an independent civilian review panel rather than being resolved through internal processes. Community liaison officers were evaluated on resident feedback rather than arrest numbers alone. Racial profiling complaints in the Houston Police Department dropped 38% in Peters's first year. The Interagency Oversight Board, the body that Maddie Boston's misdirected phone call had accidentally created, was made permanent by joint resolution of the Houston City Council and the Harris County Commissioners Court. The body cam footage of Peters opening that badge wallet and the 4 seconds of Dale Carver's expression that followed became a training reference in law enforcement programs across 6 states. The 4th-floor hallway at Crestview Commons is just a hallway now. The elevator opens. Odd residents come and go. Nobody stands near the mailboxes watching who gets off. The cameras record the corridor the way they record every other part of the building, mostly quiet. Occasionally, a neighbor with groceries or a package, moving through a space where they are not required to explain themselves to anyone. Isaac Peters lives in apartment 7B. He has lived there since the Saturday he finished moving in. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Share this video with someone who would appreciate it, and let's keep building this community together. And before you go, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what stood out to you the most. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next.